Hey, good day. Sean Parnell, Chancellor UAA. We're going to find out what's next today with Ryan Buckhold, the new Vice Chancellor for Administrative Services. We're going to ask him some personal questions and some professional questions as well as we get to know him even better than we already did. So let's get to it. You've been at the University of Alaska Anchorage for a long time, but tell us a little bit about your journey, about how you got here. Starting with your childhood. Where'd you grow up, and what were some of your experiences that led you here?
So I was born and raised in Anchorage and pretty much spent my whole life here. A few trips outside just for vacations, no real long time beyond 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm definitely, pride and true Alaskan. Some of the formative experience I had as a child is a lot of what we would do during the summer. My dad had an aluminum drift boat, and we would do some overnight camping trips, but we got into this habit around my high school years of doing day floats. So we'd put in at Kenai Lake and then pull out usually about Jim's Landing and then ride our bikes back to pick the truck up, to pick the boat up. And sometimes we would do the canyon run down across Ski Lac Lake. And it was, we didn't really do it for fishing, but just the experience of being out together, enjoying nature, and a little bit of physical activity as part of that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Some of my other sort of formative experiences as a child was hearing stories from my grandmother and grandfather as they both worked very strongly in community activism, my grandmother being a legislator and my grandfather worked a lot with the North Slope Borough and helping them to stand up their own self-governance as oil started flowing from Prudhoe Bay.
Well, that's great. Those are formative experiences, and maybe it's a nice segue to just tell us about one of the most significant positive influences in your life, in terms of a person who was that, and speak to that a little bit for us.
Yeah. One of my strongest mentors in my life was Chris Terlides, who was our former Associate Vice Chancellor for Facilities. And he taught me sort of two important lessons, or in some cases sort of really enshrined how they could be applied in the professional world. And one was the value of just small acts, whether they're small acts of kindness, touching base with a colleague that we know might be experiencing some difficulty, or walking campus, seeing some trash and just stopping, picking it up and putting it in the next trash can. Those small acts that I watched him do and sort of help instill in others were those things that, the big initiatives we engage in are all very important for the institution, but doing several small acts each day while we're here on the campus really are what shape sort of where UAA heads in the future. And then people see, we all saw Chris's behavior in this. We all tried to model that same behavior because we saw the value and we saw the impact it had on others. The other key lesson that really enshrined with him was his focus on the people. We talk a lot about focusing on students, but when we look at an administrative area, it's so many people that are doing the work that enable our academic mission. And there's a lot that needs and should be, a leader should focus on, that really ensures that our people are happy here, they can trust one another, and when times are not very good, we know we can bind together, we know we can trust each other, and we know together we can get through that challenge and on into a brighter future, which I think over the last few years is something that really allowed UAA to weather the storm. And now that we're starting to see some brighter futures, really start looking at what's that next step for UAA and how do we all have a piece within that.
Well, let's talk about that, because that leads right into kind of that vision question of what role do you see, for administrative services and the team there as it relates to the entire university?
So my vision for the division is for us to be synonymous with student success. We're an administrative services division. We're generally back of the house operations and not those often looked to as being leaders in our academic mission or the extracurricular activities of our students. But all of our functional areas and all of our staff are that foundation of our academic programs and everything else that is student and community facing. And the more that we can all lean into that and really sort of get behind that banner, the more it then enables our faculty, our staff advisors to really do the work that they need to, touching base with that student, getting them through, finding what academic program that they best fits their vision and getting them to that moment of academic success.
So speaking to that, what specific examples, where do you see administrative services right now? Where do you see our professionals and our people in that realm? Where do you see them putting students first right now?
So a great example is in the Northern Light a few years ago, a student reporter interviewed several members of our grounds team. And our grounds team does amazing work making campus look just beautiful, especially this time of year with the flower beds being planted. But a lot of work also on interior plants. And the student reporter was very interested in why. Why do they spend so much time and energy in those areas? And the grounds employees were very clear that, well, I'm creating an environment that is warm and welcoming and conducive to students, whether they're studying, like going to class, studying, meeting with a group project on this campus, whether it's in the summer months or the dark winter months. And that's sort of, I think, a great example of a line of employees that is not often thought of as leaning into student success and what is their role in transforming lives as something that we can transport across the division. I think we have a lot of pockets of that across administrative services, and now it's about how do we bring that all together, how do we make that a shared vision, and how do we build upon a lot of the successes that have gone on over the years.
I think you just struck a positive chord with me, because I recall as the snow was melting, we saw the water trucks out and the gravel being cleared, we're seeing the grass being cut now. There's just a real pride that's taken in our UAA campuses by administrative services, staff, and others. It's just so good to see. You've spoken to really that first aspiration of UAA 2025. How we endeavor in all of our jobs and units to put students first. I know another key aspiration of ours is really important to you, and I've seen your real positive work in the community, your community council work and beyond. But can you speak to your role at administrative services and the aspirations around our communities?
The aspiration behind being a trusted and respected community partner is one that, as we were working at the 2025 committee, I looked at that and said, this is UAA's future. It's like, in many ways, we're through UAA 2020, we really got behind the student success mission. And again, there's a lot to then build upon that good work. But when we look at what does UAA's next phase look like, it really is about building those really strong partnerships with the communities throughout not only South Central Alaska, but the state of Alaska and even beyond. And where are those opportunities for specifically administrative services to really lean into this? We have some departments that, just from the nature of their work, like facilities and UPD, that interact with other entities and agencies outside of UAA, but in some ways that's more kind of a transactional relationship. So how do we take that to the next level and look at ways we can partner with, say, the municipality of Anchorage as they look at electrifying some of their vehicles? How can we partner with that with our own fleet? How could we link up with our academic program through CTC to help ensure that we have a training program set for students to then be able to maintain electric vehicles in Alaska? And I think as we look at the federal infrastructure bill, as well as other initiatives that Governor Dunleavy has proposed on renewable energy and other things that really improve the resiliency of Anchorage and Alaska, we have a lot of opportunities within administrative services to be a living laboratory, both for our programs as well as for the state. So I'm really excited to see what we could do there.
Super. So think about the first 30 days. You're now the vice chancellor. Bill Jacob has been our interim vice chancellor for administrative services. He's given a lot of himself to the job. I've watched that working team that you've been with Bill, and have appreciated just the communication, the coordination, the cooperation that's evidenced, with the work that you've done as budget director. Can you give we're in this transition period where Bill is helping to onboard you now, and you're working a transition. You've got some pretty weighty responsibilities right now with the budget. Can you speak to the first 30 days, what that looks like? What will administrative services see from you in the first 30 days, and then push it out 60 days, and what does that look like in terms of a transition?
Yeah, so the first 30 days, as knowledgeable and involved I've been in a number of things across the division. I know there's a lot that I have not been involved in, or a lot of details that I'm not aware of just what each department is working on. For the last 2 years, we've done a lot of work on goals and objectives across the departments, as well as assessing our risks. So these are areas where I need to learn from each of the department heads is sort of where they're heading on these goals and objectives. What are some of the key risks? And what are areas that now, as stepping into the vice chancellor role, I need to be aware of to either help with some of the blocking and tackling on different activities, or just understand, okay, if we have a little bit more resources in this specific area, this can enhance things like student success. This can improve our ability to serve our customers, whether they're faculty or students, in a much better fashion, and really start to understand where those are. So as things improve on the state budget side and we have some opportunities to figure out where we can deploy some of those resources, I have a good sense and can bring it to yourself as well as the rest of the cabinet to say, here is a great sort of investment that we can make that meets our strategic goals here, here, and here. So in many ways, I'll be in listening mode, for the first 30 days and even the next 60 days. As I look forward into the fall semester, one of the things I'm pretty excited to look at bringing back are more opportunities for us to come together as a division, in person as much as we can, in order to reestablish a lot of the connections and synergies that I think all our different work groups have had that, unfortunately, degraded a little bit over the pandemic, things that you can't quite do in a purely virtual environment. So looking at how I can rebuild that community within the division, and then the relationships that we have with the other divisions across UAA.
Mm-hmm. Well, you came through a rigorous search committee process. You were an internal candidate that you've really demonstrated your commitment to UAA. You've demonstrated your relationship ability. You've demonstrated your technical competencies, across facilities and budget and beyond. With the incident management team after the earthquake, you stepped in and helped lead the recovery efforts there. And I just want to say thank you for stepping forward to serve as Vice Chancellor for Administrative Services, and thanks for agreeing to spend a little time here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.